Hey guys, and welcome back. So for you, I think it's Saturday by the time I get this edited and uploaded. For me, it is Monday, which means I'm on the verge of brain dead. Because Monday always seems to be the hardest day of the week for me. I don't know why. But anyway, before I begin today's lesson, I wanted to tell you a quick story about today's lesson. So when I smell peppermint, I don't immediately think about herbalism. I think about my maternal grandmother. Now, every time that woman came around, she always smelled of peppermint and big red chewing gum. And to this day, every time I smell that combination, it takes me right back to the memory of her. And to me, I find it kind of funny, right, how certain plants and smells can trigger memories like that, right? But today we're not going to talk about peppermint candy or peppermint gum or grandma for long terms. But I want us to actually meet the plant, right? Because once you understand the plant, everything else begins to make a lot more sense. So peppermint's botanical name is mentha with an X in the middle and then piperita, right? It's a perennial herb, meaning once established, it will come back year after year. One interesting detail is peppermint is actually a natural hybrid. That's why the X is in the botanical name, and it is a cross between watermelon mint and spearmint, right? And if you've ever grown peppermint, well, you know it is a very enthusiastic grower by spreading through the rhizomes underneath the ground and filling up your garden beds rather quickly. And that's one reason why garden growers usually grow it in containers, right? So, peppermint's not trying to take over the world, but honestly, if you let it, it probably would. So, mature plants are usually 1 to 3 feet tall with bright green, slightly serrated leaves and square stems. And in the summer, they produce spikes of small pink to lavender flowers that are very attractive pollinators. And again, it's in the mint family. Now, one of the first questions herbalists ask, which part of the plant is traditionally used? With peppermint, it's the leaves. Why? Because that's where much of the plant stores its aromatic chemistry. So if you look closely at the peppermint leaf, you would find tiny oil glands scattered across the surface. Now, you probably can't see this with the naked eye, but with some sort of magnification, you can definitely see them. But without the magnification, you can still experience them, right? By rubbing that leaf gently between your fingers, instantly the aromatic compound becomes much stronger. That's because those tiny oil glands have ruptured and released their contents. And those aromatic oils are one of peppermint's defining characteristics. So, what makes peppermint smell the way it does? Well, the aromatic compound comes from naturally occurring volatile oils, and the best known of them is menthol. Menthol is responsible for that familiar cooling sensation almost everyone associates peppermint with. Another important constituent is menthone, something like that. And again, it's just another active compound in the plant. Now look, we don't have to memorize every constituent. We're just understanding that this aroma is not just some accident, it's chemistry. The plant produces these compounds for its own survival. We simply happen to appreciate them and use them. The sun's blocking me out, guys. So, why herbalists have traditionally appreciated peppermint? Well, peppermint has a long history in traditional herbalism, particularly when it comes to digestive wellness. For generations, people have enjoyed peppermint tea after meals. And if you've ever wondered why restaurants often offer mints after dinner, well, that custom reflects a long-standing appreciation for peppermint's refreshing qualities. Now, herbalists have traditionally valued peppermint because its aromatic nature has been associated with supporting comfortable digestion. Now, notice how I worded that. peppermint doesn't take over the work of your digestive system. Your digestive system is already doing an incredible amount of work every day. What peppermint does, it traditionally has been appreciated as one plant that may support those normal digestive processes. That's a much different way of thinking than saying peppermint fixes digestion. It respects both the plant and the remarkable design of the human body. So, why does that aroma matter? Well, one thing I found fascinating about peppermint is that before you experience it, before you ever taste it, right, it's there in your face, right? So think about that. If you made a cup of tea, before that tea reaches your lips, you smell it. Before you chew the leaf, you smell it. Fergus is mad at a cat again. Before you even decide whether you like peppermint, your nose has already started interacting with this plant. And that tells us something, right? The aroma isn't just a pleasant feature. It's one of peppermint's defining characteristics. And it's one reason herbalists have appreciated this plant for centuries. And I think that's kind of cool. So, how is peppermint commonly prepared? Well, peppermint is incredibly versatile. The fresh leaves can be added to water, salads, desserts, summer drinks. Dried leaves are commonly prepared as teas. They're also used to make tinctures. Peppermint essential oil is distilled from the leaves, creating a highly concentrated product. And so because essential oils are much more concentrated than the whole herb, they should always be used according to the product directions and always with appropriate caution. Essential oils are not interchangeable with a cup of peppermint tea under no circumstances. So, one of the wonderful things about peppermint is that a single plant can become many different preparations. Each one highlights a different aspect of the same plant. And that's kind of cool. I like plants that do a lot of extra work for me. So, if you have never grown peppermint before, I highly recommend you do it. It's one of the easiest herbs for beginners. Peppermint prefers moist soil and does well in full sun to partial shade. Now, because it spreads so readily through underground runners, many gardeners choose to contain it and keep it from overtaking nearby plants, but it depends on what you want your area to look like. For the strongest aroma, many herbalists harvest the leaves shortly before the plant flowers. After harvesting, the stems can be bundled and hung upside down in a cool, dry place with good airflow, so kind of like you dry lavender. Once completely dry, strip the leaves from the stems and store them in an airtight glass jar away from heat and light. Properly stored dried peppermint keeps its wonderful aroma for many months. So, and you can always check it by opening it up and checking the smell from your container. So next time you have any peppermint around, I want you to make a cup of peppermint tea. And before you drink it, I want you to spend a minute with it, right? I want you to smell the steam. I want you to look at the color. I want you to taste it slowly. Make sure that when you do an aromatic tea, you put a cover over the top of it while it's steeping so all your aromatic oils don't leach out. But what do you notice about it, right? Not what you've been told to notice about peppermint tea, not what you expect to notice from peppermint tea, just what you genuinely experience. Learning herbs begins with paying attention, right? And I hope you're kind of getting that narrative through all these videos. So today we met peppermint, a plant that's been a part of many of our lives long before we ever thought of it as an herb. We have talked about its leaves, its chemistry, its traditional role in digestive herbalism, and why it has remained such a familiar companion in kitchens and apothecaries around the world. So as we continue this digestive series, each plant will add another piece to the puzzle. Again, not because one herb is better than another, but because every plant has its own story to tell. So we build up to formulations, right? By studying each individual herb and then building to the formulations to see what we would want to bring in from each attribute of the herb. So that's what we're trying to do here. So until next time, I want you to stay rooted, stay curious, and as always, keep growing in grace.